just anything else you want to mention?
Okay.
Those two.
Is there any special goal of that's going on?
Always.
Yeah, anything you can talk about.
Yeah.
Then let's take it. Has your new director started?
The 5th of December and Rick started the 15th.
Okay.
So I will mention that.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Good or bad?
She was a councilwoman in Westminster.
Westminster. Policy and communications.
Right there.
We need more chairs. Steve, yeah, good to see you.
Well, everyone, let's go ahead and get started. Can you hear me okay? Everybody hear me okay?
You can turn it up.
Well, I was going to say welcome to the 2023 Trinidad Los Animas County Legislative Roundtable. This event is brought to the citizens of Trinidad for the past 7 years, I think 6-7 years, through collaboration with the Los Animas County Commissioners and the City of Trinidad, the City Council. Back then, we decided, let's try to collaborate a little bit more. And I know there's been some question of any collaboration that we are doing, and we are working together, little pieces here and there, but we are working together. First of all, I want to thank Marty Hackett for setting this up today. She's done a tremendous job. Little housekeeping, there are some cookies and coffee and I think water in the back. Bathrooms are back over here in the corner. And just to let you know that Tom Murphy is filming this event this evening and will be available for viewing later on tonight or tomorrow on YouTube and Channel 71, correct? So there will be two areas of opportunity that people will be able to view this, so that's important. I want to say thank you for attending tonight, but before we actually get started, would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Senator. Like I say, this legislative session, it gives citizens an opportunity to meet and hear from our local, state, and federal officials. And of course, this evening we also have our lobbyist that the city employs to do some work for us, serious work. And he will be presenting on upcoming issues, of course, that are of concern to all of us. So that's going to be an important component. And he is going to have probably a longer period of time to speak tonight in place of us. So at this time, what I want to do is, of course, introduce our speakers. And starting from this end, we got Mr. Tony Haas. He's County Commissioner. Mr. Luis Lopez. And Representative Winter. Senator Pelton. And Commissioner Felix Lopez. We also have Antonio Berta, who represents Hickenlooper's office. Renee Martinez from Bennett's office. And of course, Steve Ruger, who's our city manager. And we got Kathy Garcia, who's representing Senator or Congresswoman Bobert's office. And of course, Tara Marshall, who is our DOLA area representatives. Each speaker will have 5 minutes. And then after that, after each speaker, you'll have a Q&A for at least another 5 minutes from the audience. So it'll give you an opportunity to ask that individual speaker any questions that you might have at the end of each presentation. Like I said, the exception to the 5 minutes will be our lobbyist, Mr. Beasley, who has, I think, a lot of information that we want him to report on. We have a timekeeper, Mr. Ruger is going to keep time for this 5 minute time period. So whenever he raises his hand or throws something at a speaker, we'll know that time is up. So I'm going to keep it very short, and I'm going to start here, first of all, with, it's not on the agenda, but we forgot to put her at first on the agenda, is Tara Marshall from DOLA.
Thank you, Mayor Rico. I knew I should have sat in the back row. I was sitting in the front row and I got nabbed. I'm just fine not being on the agenda. Good evening, my name is Tara Marshall. I represent the Southeast region for Department of Local Affairs. I want to thank Los Animas County and the City of Trinidad for inviting us to speak at this event every year. Just going to do a couple of brief updates. Our long times for the past 5 years, Director Rick Garcia is retiring. So his last day will be December 5th, and we have announced our new executive director will be Maria DeCambra. She is coming out of Governor Polis's office, and she'll be starting around the 5th of December. So look forward to having her down here to meet with the city officials and community representatives and get her up to speed on the importance of Los Animas County and the city in what we do every day. 2 updates on programs that DOLA oversees. The first is the Energy Impact Assistance Fund. Those of you in the city know it as EIAF. You see that acronym all the time. That is a fund that is created to hold the state's severance tax that's collected, as well as federal mineral lease taxes. Once those taxes are collected, they're split fairly down the middle, maybe a little more complicated than that, between Parks and Wildlife and between DOLA. We use a large portion of those funds to fund grants to local governments. So local governments, in this case, are Los Animas County, the City of Trinidad, and the 5 towns that exist within the county, as well as maybe special districts. Certainly Mount St. Raphael Hospital has come in. Trinidad State College has been in for some funding. Energy mineral impact funds have been high over the last year. So we're seeing about 25 to 30 million available in each round of funding. Just quickly mention a couple of projects. The county courthouse project. If you're driving around the streets around the courthouse now, we're helping work with the city on that project. The Fox Theater has a grant that's gearing up right now. And of course, Mr. Dorenkamp comes in and gets those county roads upgraded as quickly as we can get the money out. In particular to this fund, I want to point out and thank Commissioner Tony Haas for sitting on the Energy Impact Assistance Fund Committee. So the governor appoints about 5 representatives from around the state to sit on the committee. We haven't had in the past couple of decades a representative from this area. And so why might that be important? Well, first, every county is given an impact score. That impact score is based on how much severance tax your county's generating and is participating in at the state level. You can get 1 to 10, you can be scored on a score of 1 to 10. Pueblo County, for example, is a 2 because they just don't have extractive industries. Huerfano County, just south of here is, or just north of here rather, is a 6. Well, Los Animas County is a 10. They're one of only 3 counties that's ranked a 10, which means that fund exists for you to access it to do projects and bring that severance tax back. As I mentioned, we participated with the college, we participated with the hospital, with the city and county. We've participated in Cookdale, in Starkville, in Kim, and in Branson in recent years. So I want to thank Tony personally because he really is very strong advocate for getting that money back in Southern Colorado. I would say, what, Tony, in the past year and a half, we've gotten almost every grant that has been put in funded, with maybe one exception. I don't know, I doubt any of my leadership's watching this. I'll just tell this one little story and then I'll be done, Steve. It'll only take a few seconds. So I was watching scoring from behind the scenes in the impact hearing just a few weeks ago. And it was a particular initiative related to resiliency centers. And the applicants were like Fort Collins, Denver, Longmont, a couple of other and Huerfano County had put in. And I was watching the scores, and Huerfano County was sitting, you know, middle to low, and I was thinking, I'm really going to have to fight to get this one funded. Tony steps up and gives a speech. I watched the score go from middle to like the #1 project in that short of a time. So really, it's very important that we keep representation on that committee. And then I'll just close by mentioning Proposition 123, which is the city has funded, has opted into. This is going to be a huge pool of money to support affordable housing over the next 6 years. So looking forward to working with the city of Trinidad to get some housing infrastructure put in place. And that opt-in was just November 1. So we're actually doing our first meeting tomorrow on how that funding might be applied. So anyway, that's all I have for you this year. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Ms. Marshall? And before we move on, I just wanted to take, I was remiss earlier, I want to introduce our mayor-elect, Ms. Karen Grego. Please stand up and let yourself be known. We also have tonight with us our Mayor Pro Tem, Ms. Erin Ogletree. And we also have Councilman Mr. Eli DeBono. Thank you for being here. Moving on to the next speaker will be our city manager, Mr. Steve Uller.
Well, thank you all for being here. Last year I had a COVID threat, so I couldn't participate, so it's really nice to actually be face-to-face with you all tonight. We couldn't have picked a better day to be here in Trinidad, but I don't want to take too much of your time, but I did want to highlight some successes and some of the city projects we're working on right now that I think are having a powerful impact in our community. So the first thing I wanted to start with is the city's Housing Now program. The council allocated a couple of years ago about $2 million to assist with developers in creating workforce housing. And some of you may know this already, but I'm proud to announce we have exceeded our goal of 100 units and have created 115 workforce housing units, 64 of which are tied to deed restrictions, and the rest are capped at AMI. So that is a huge accomplishment for our city, and I'm so and thank you to our council for having the courage to bring that program forward. First Street, if you haven't seen First Street, Tara did mention some of the improvements around the county courthouse. Because of the funding, we've been able to go above and beyond what we ever envisioned for that project, to the extent that we're even able to add accessibility for Fort Wooten. And I think that's parking spaces. So that is a tremendous win for our residents, particularly our veterans. So very excited for that. And we are looking at some funding at this point to hopefully rehabilitate Church Street as well as doing a robust redesign of Main Street. So can you imagine having First Street, Main Street, Church Street, all done in beautiful brick, looking like Commercial Street, and having this beautiful central downtown to appeal to our residents and visitors. I'm so excited for the look of our community and what's to come. One of the biggest things I wanted to mention, and probably the most important thing that I will tell you today, is we have engaged a consultant to bring a 5-year strategic plan to our community. And today is actually day 1 for the consultant being on site and beginning the interview process. He's already interviewed a council member and will interview the rest of our elected officials this week, and then has also met with all city department directors. So I will give a shout out to our strategic planning consultant, Marv Wiedner, who's in the back there. We are so lucky. He's with a company called Managing Results, and they are really the Cadillac of strategic planning consultants, and they're also based here in Colorado as of now. So it's a win-win for us, and I think we're going to go through a great process. The major thing I wanted to highlight, though, is this is not just the city officials sitting around saying this is what the city is going to be. This is a full, robust community effort, and it's tremendously important for us to have you all involved in this. So after we get through some initial interviews, come early next year, we'll have lots of opportunities for community meetings, feedback, and that type of thing. So really excited for that. In tandem with that, I'm so proud, we just are in the process of completing our National Community Survey. What that is a survey that's put on by a company called Polco. They do it for hundreds of communities across the country. It's about 106 questions, I think, in total. And what that gets us is benchmarking for how we're doing compared to other communities. It's statistically valid. I'm hoping some of you have gotten a copy of the survey, and hopefully you filled it out and sent it back. I can't emphasize how important it is. It's going to be a powerful tool for us knowing where we're deficient and what areas we need to focus on as a local government. I could go on and on about Riverwalk visioning, infrastructure improvements, all these things that we have in the hopper that hopefully a lot of you are aware about, but I don't want to take too much time away from our valuable elected officials' time. So I will stop there, but be happy to answer any questions that you all have. All right, well, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Steve. And I just wanted to mention, we do have another elected official that just walked in the door, Mr. Manny Trujillo. Would you please rise? And he was just elected as new city councilman. And one thing that I just wanted to mention, Steve, that you did mention is UBA. And UBA is a transformational transportation system, one of a kind. Actually would be the first in the country. If we're actually working on, anyway, they're looking into it for us, which is an interesting project.
We applied for a grant for a feasibility study, and we're hoping to get that money and start making good things happen.
Okay, next person to would be Commissioner Felix Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor, and welcome and good evening, everyone. On behalf of Los Animas County Board of County Commissioners, I want to say thank you. The City of Trinidad and the county working together for the betterment and benefit of all citizens. I want to thank the City of Trinidad for the renovation that happened around the courthouse. What an impressive project that has been. For many years and decades, that was one of the forgotten parts of Los Animas County. That's a people's house. We get so many traffic. We had recently a visitor from Washington, D.C. in the middle of the project and construction, so vibrancy is who we are. And one of the messages that we have from Los Animas County to all of you is that we are working for you. Certainly when you have a comment, an opinion, don't hesitate to reach out. From the perspective of being advocates at the state legislature, we are your voice, and all the way to the national level. We have a great opportunity to represent the state of Colorado here at Los Animas County. I am your county commissioner that actually was elected to represent the state when we go to these national conferences. So from that perspective, just so you know the depth and capacity that we have with my fellow county commissioners, it's a very impressive and great opportunity with a humbling perspective that goes behind. So a couple of updates that I want to give to you on the projects that we are doing is one of them, of course, is the courthouse continues to go. Phase 1 was the foundation stabilization. Then we did the roof membrane replacement, then electrical and so on. And all of the challenges that a building that was put up in 1912 has with it. We are going to be, we did a feasibility study. We're going to be engaging with a consultant actually to beautify around the perimeter, the greenery perspective of that particular building. We're going to be doing some shrubbery and that kind of thing. So if you have any comments, ideas, please reach out to us as well, because at the end of the day, I know 1912 is coming back and that building is going to be really vibrant. I want to give a huge thanks to Tara Marshall, through the Energy Impact Assistance Fund, and to Commissioner Tony Haas, because recently, a couple of weeks ago, we had an opportunity as a county to present a grant in the amount of $950,000, and we were awarded that. And one of the projects that we have in there is to provide pavement on the street that goes all the way up to the landfill, right in front of the landfill, to the trailhead that we have up there. So that's going to be a little bit of renovation. We continue to work around the county fairgrounds to beautify that place, and we intentionally have engaged some students from the School of Architecture out of CU to do a feasibility study and a strategic plan so we can continue to attract families to visit that part of the city. We did through a main street, we installed sidewalks, that infrastructure. Before you walk out to the county fairgrounds, you had to walk on the side of the street. Now you have a sidewalk that leads you all the way to that facility. We continue to look also on the possibility of beautifying the rest of our facilities, and not only that, but renovating them. We have a project with Perry Stokes, Los Animas County Airport. Incredible opportunity that we have here. And Mayor-elect, we look forward to having a conversation with the city and county come together and look at opportunities and partnering in managing that airport to attract individuals and citizens from all over the United States. We have obviously one that we're going to be doing some taxiway construction. We're going to be fixing the runways, which are pretty much just about there. But we're engaging also with the contractor, with the company that actually manages airports. We are in first conversations, hoping that they're going to tell us, yes, let us manage that for you. Because as a mechanic, I can do basically the carpentry skills. So we need to engage the subject matter experts from this perspective and continue to work on behalf of the citizens of Los Animas County. Real brief also on our DHS department. One of the things that we have, I have an opportunity to serve on the statewide Child Welfare Task Force allocation formula. And I can tell you, Mr. Aragon is here, but we have so many challenges coming to us from the federal and state rulemaking processes, but we're finding a way to provide the services for the citizens of Los Animas County. The opportunities for a county commissioner and challenges are many, but it is with great honor that we do this. And so, one last comment that I want to make on this particular update: the opioid, Southeast Colorado, Region 19. We have a challenge with opioid, and we're calling it a pandemic now. And so we are going to be entering into year 2 of RFP allocations, services that are actually going to be going out to the communities. We partner with 9 counties, and these 9 counties are working very shoulder to shoulder in providing education, harm reduction, treatment, prevention, and then of course criminal justice. We launched the website a couple of days ago, and the website is ready and it's up and going, and I will send that over to our city manager so we can actually have that information available for all our constituents. And one of the great and important opportunities that we have in front of us is to create an infrastructure that provides full services for those individuals that are working and going through the opioid pandemic. So we will continue to work with that as a community, as your Board of County Commissioners, to actually reach out and see if we have an opportunity to do an infrastructure grant building for the city of Trinidad and Los Animas County, so we can provide the services right here. About a month ago, the Attorney General was here, and one of the things that he said, we have an opportunity in front of us and he would support an infrastructure grant. So we need to take that opportunity and perhaps really combine all the know-how and the knowledge that we have in this community to come together and write a grant and have those services right here in Los Animas County. So that would be my update for today, and I'm open for any questions. Boy, I like this. We're going to be done quick. Thank you.
Just as kind of an addition to what he was just talking about with the opioid, is we had a meeting prior to this meeting earlier today. We brought in Mr. Mike Beasley because a couple of years ago, the city of Trinidad, well, the area, received $350,000 a year for 2 years, a total of $700,000. That money is going to sunset this next year, and we talked with Mr. Beasley as to how we can try to get that funded into the future. Because if we're going to work on recidivism and drug problems, this type of program needs to be continuing, needs to be refunded. So it's going to be really important that we try to find some additional money to keep this funded going into the future. Next on the list, of course, would be Commissioner Luis Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, folks. Everybody, it's good to see you. I work with most of you all the time in some sort of capacity throughout the years, and it's always an honor to be here to give you some updates of what we are doing at the county level. First off, a big thank you to Tara Marshall for all of the funding. We help our community in Los Animas County and Huerfano County in the region. As Commissioner Felix Lopez indicated, we work on many areas from the state, federal, local level collectively, and I believe collectively the three commissioners serve on over 45 different boards. And the one particular board I'm here to speak to you today is the Front Range Passenger Rail that I was appointed to in the last year and a half. This Front Range Passenger Rail was developed by Senate Bill 22-238, and its intention is to bring a passenger rail from right now Fort Collins to Pueblo, but the legislation itself is from border to border. So here's a quick update what's going on with the rail and where we're at. We are currently in a service development plan process, which will have that completed here by the end of 2024. The modeling exercises are here to get information on ridership, cost operations, capital inventory, service options. The service development plan will insight and direct our routes and our stations and how we move forward. So imagine the conversation that's happening all up and down the Front Range between counties, municipalities, and the Front Range Rail in establishing this corridor. One of the main reasons that I wanted to be on this was to ensure that we had transportation needs covered in Los Animas and Huerfano County, which the South Central Council of Governments represents, and I was an honor to do so. So we're coming up on a end-of-year forum that we'll be meeting here at the end of November and having a work session with the board entirely in Denver coming up to see with our consultants where we're at and the status of this organization moving forward. The past year has been mainly organizational and infrastructure for the Front Range Rail as far as employees, legal counsel, all of the housekeeping opportunities that needed to be fiscally managed at that level when we're talking millions and millions of dollars. So I believe this board has really come through getting all of these things in place. But the development plan is the key to moving forward with our consultants on how we can present what is coming next, which is pushed very heavily by our governor for 2024, which will be a ballot measure. Under the legislation, we are able to present a sales tax proposal district-wide. And what that encompasses is the counties that the rail would be transported from. So outside of that district would not be on the ballot measure. We know that we don't believe, we understand that that's not going to be enough money to support the rail from its infancy to construction to development throughout the stages. So we'll be working closely with our legislation, and I believe Representative Winters and Pelt's up to in conversations with our general manager in the past. That'll be the next steps of how we find the funding to move forward to completely fund this, along with the Federal Rail Administration. So the FRA and the Front Range Passenger Rail have worked collectively together on establishing this route, and this was initialized by was the Federal Rail Administration and receiving the amount of money that came forward to give us our kickstart years ago. And that was underneath the Southwest Chief at that time, which Mayor Rico was a board member of. And that's how that Fort Collins to Pueblo was developed through the FRA. That was their suggestion to start that program where your most populated areas would be and ridership could be developed. But it has turned out that our ridership needs are going to be larger than that. And so I am advocating very heavily and vehemently so we can have that from Pueblo to Trinidad. The communications that have been done with the BNSF is to coexist on that rail at this time. There has not been much opposition from the BNSF. Matter of fact, a partnership is being developed as they are one of our board members of a non-voting stature. So as we move forward, we believe that we will not need a service development plan from Pueblo to Trinidad, saving millions of dollars in this plan of operations and utilize the existing right-of-way that is there through the BNSF rail. Therefore, that is our hope moving forward. However, if that is not feasible for some reason, and that would have to be overseen and approved by the Federal Rail Administration, we have moved forward with a resolution to designate funding for the service development plan for the upcoming years after this initial development plan is finalized in 2024. So what we've done is secured two ways of getting this done, whether the BNSF will be willing to work with us with the Federal Rail Administration in the existing right-of-way. And the reason why I would rather prefer to do that is to protect private rights, private ownership, land rights. So we would not have to engage in eminent domain or any type of land grab to secure this at this time. The other possibilities would be if we have the funding for a service development plan, to do so would also encompass the same parameters. And I am a true advocate for no eminent domain whatsoever for this. There is some legislation that we will be working on to clean up some of the language in the bill, and that will be presented here, I believe, in this upcoming session by Pueblo Representative Morrow and Senator Zenzinger from Arvado. And it's not really changing the legislation whatsoever. It's just cleaning up some of the language so the board will have a little bit more legroom to maneuver. There's a raise grant that has been working with the city of Trinidad that was applied for many years ago, and Mr. Ruger and Mr. Rico and the Affirmative Israel recently had that with a discussion. We're moving forward with that, and that is the pass-through car rail for the Southwest Chief, existing from Kansas, possibly to La Habana, which goes now, and maybe to the Pueblo area, and redirecting the route. At our last board meeting, Mr. Ruger, Amtrak, was amenable to whatever the Federal Rail Administration gives them guidance. So they're not saying no to it for this reroute. They'll do whatever the federal government does. So we'll need some federal help on that if we see this part fruition as well in the funding. The financial benefits are going to be tremendous for the community of our area that I represent, Huerfano County, Los Animas County. And we're seeing that now through the offset of the newly formed bus stand. Ridership, and that is managed through the CDOT, but Council of Governments is our operator here in Los Angeles and Huerfano County, and goes up to Pueblo. The ridership at this time is equal coming south as it is going north, and that is tremendous. And what that does, it helps me give the support and the criteria and the numbers that we need to gain support for a train from Trinidad to Pueblo and vice versa. So our businesses are seeing travelers come from Pueblo. It'll assist our junior college in the future, hopefully for students with the train or right now Mustang, being able to attend Trinidad State College, and utilizing these services that are in place right now and for the future. Now, what's it going to cost? It's enormous. I don't even want to put my head around it. It's going to be very, very expensive. But the whole purpose of this rail is not for the next 5 years. We won't see it at least for another 10. A rail car itself will take 10 years for the manufacturing process to be put in place. What we're looking at is 30 to 50 years from now of all of us being able to not have to ride in a $100,000 electric car that none of us can afford the infrastructure for, and ride a train to go see our physicians in Colorado Springs and Denver, where our elderly will not have to move and relocate because they have to get closer to their doctors, where there'll be a quick trip up north or down south to see our grandchildren at that time. So the possibilities are going to be endless with this when it comes to fruition, and I'm a true advocate that this will come to fruition someday, and I will need all your support in this. But however, by maintaining discipline and maintaining private property rights for the betterment of our community. So with that, I'll take any questions. Yes?
What is the ridership?
Right now from Pueblo to Trinidad, I believe our ridership was showing, it was 50% both ways. And the ridership, exact numbers I don't have. Aaron Lopez with Council of Governments would be able to have that for you. I got too many numbers in my head, I apologize, but the benefits of it are actually, or the amount of ridership, if I remember correctly, were in the hundreds on a monthly basis, coming both up and down. And At the time, the ridership was free, so it wasn't being charged. The CDOT was absorbing that loss. It declined maybe 20% when they started charging, and now that it's at full charge and everything, it's back to the same numbers as it was. So it's showing its benefits. Thank you.
You said 30 to 50 years? When I was on the commission, we were talking about 15 years.
Still from state line to state line.
Anyway, I was on that commission for about 4 years, and just to let you know, one of the things that I've been getting hit on for the last few years is, why isn't there something where, when people are wanting to get off the train or get on the train, that right now they're having to stay in their cars. So 2 years ago, when I was still on the commission, started talking with the people from Amtrak, and just this fall, they put a platform down there. They were waiting for a pre-manufactured building, which is out probably another 5 or 6 months, that will be put in place so that it'll be there when people want to get on and get off the train. So we'll have something for people to be able to do that. I want to get Mr. Tony Hess.
First of all, I want to thank these fellow commissioners for allotting me some of their time today so I could address you. We do have Sarah Blackhurst here from Action 22. Give her a round of applause. And Tara, couldn't get anything done without your mentorship, so thank you. Los Animas County continues to explore the generation of renewable energy projects. The private partnerships must obtain a special use permit through Los Animas County to operate these energy plants. We encourage and call on the Colorado General Assembly to recognize all types of energy process. Electrifying the county, state, nation will require embracing all forms of energy production. Energy generation must combine all energy production in order to have sufficiency overall. There are several reasons why harnessing all energy sources is so important for our future. As of now, the turn-off switch from one type of energy to another doesn't exist. Therefore, the more plentiful supply of combined sources will create the desired balance of outcomes. When the Colorado General Assembly and the governor call for the net zero goals in the future, it is imperative and important to consider all types of energy production. Currently, Los Animas County is embracing all forms of energy. We have the following renewable energy projects that are currently being developed. We have a solar project east of Aguilar by Elk Run Solar. It encompasses 2,000 private acres. Also southeast of Aguilar, Spanish Peak Solar encompasses 600 private acres. West of Model, Herald Solar is on 600 private acres. Northeast of Kim, Los Animas Renewable, a wind generation project encompasses 105,000 private and public acres. North of Kim, we have helium production. South of Thatcher, we have helium production. On the north end of the county, near Highway 10, we have more wind generation. So Los Animas County is truly embracing all forms of energy. And we are currently looking into the possibility of geothermal production southeast of the Spanish Peaks in Los Animas County. Also, with the help of grants, Los Animas County has paved a little over 5 miles of gravel road this year. And I got to give a big shout out to our Road and Bridge Department. And as they were featured in the National Association of Counties, the publication, as one of the most proficient at maintaining their gravel roads and bridges in the nation. The reason they were recognized is because of the Rad Fest. And those bike riders really appreciate the condition of our roads. So, Phil, good job. Thank you all for being here. Thank you.
Tony, I got a question for you. You talked about geothermal.
Yes.
And in 2017, I think 2016, when I took my seat, we had somebody come down from, I forget where, and they were looking at geothermal, and they were looking at it at around the Goldfield area. And is that something that, an area that maybe could be looked at?
So, Felix, please expound on that. I'm done. Thank you.
let me briefly thank you for that question, Mayor. So geothermal in Los Animas County, we have one of the most plentiful pools anywhere in the Western Hemisphere. When I had an opportunity to work at the college, we had a study done by the Office of Energy through the governor's office. At that time, Governor Bill Reeder. And so a few years ago, as Mayor Rico is mentioning, we engaged with a company out of the United States Geothermal Energy out of San Diego. I had an opportunity to meet with them. So they came to Trinidad in partnership with Evergreen Natural Resources. And the conversation went in so far as to who is going to support these projects. So we have the energy here, and we need to revive that conversation. So Mayor Grego, we will engage the conversation going forward in council because the opportunities are right here. And I tell you, one of the studies that we did, at that time I was really interested in providing the opportunities for the students at Trinidad State to learn geothermal engineering and in partnership with some universities at the larger level. So that is something that has, because of COVID, was kind of put on the back burner. But the opportunity is there. In western Los Animas County, through Evergreen Natural Resources and others that have looked into that, as close as Brewer Canyon, there is plentiful geothermal energy to be extracted, just waiting for us. And even the conversation went into perhaps having an opportunity to have a power plant powered with natural gas, geothermal, solar. And so that conversation, we need to go back and find it. But that was the answer to your question, sir.
Next on the list is Ms. Renee Martinez, representing Senator Bennett's office.
I got practice.
I'm so sorry. What a way to make an introduction, right? So I'm Renee. I work for Senator Bennett. I'm located in Pueblo, but I serve 12 counties, including Los Animas. And I want to start by thanking Mayor Rico for the level of engagement he has had with our office as well as the other congressional offices. And I look forward to a similar relationship with you, Mayor-elect Grego. But I also would like to recognize the commissioners and Dr. Epper for their levels of engagement. So thank you very much for including us in these meetings and other meetings. We too are here to serve, and please remember that. I'm always happy to come down as we're able to. I want to start by saying that Antonio and I yesterday compared notes because we didn't want to be redundant. And we were looking for funding that has come to Los Animas County. And lucky for me, just today, the Biden-Harris administration announced in the tune of $2.4 million coming here for the Purgatory Watershed Partnership, Purgatory River Fish Passage Reclamation Funding. So just today we found that out, and again, just lucky for me, but I also want to mention that there's a lot of federal money that is coming this way, but it's being administered through the state, so it may not look like that it's coming from the federal government when indeed it is. So please keep that in mind. I wanted to share with you some bills that Senator Bennett has introduced in recent months that are pertinent to rural communities. Although he's introducing a lot of bills, I wanted to focus on those that are most relevant to all of you. The first being the Improving Mental Health Care Access for Rural Communities, which helps us to better understand the barriers individuals facing when accessing care. Secondly, connecting our neighbors to networks and ensuring competitive telecommunications, or also known as Connect. which will make it easier for small providers to apply for the Reconnect Loan and Grant Program and ensure that federal funding reaches rural communities. Next is the Forest Service Flexible Housing Partnership Act, which addresses the housing shortage in rural and mountain communities. The Real Health Providers Act, making it easier for seniors to find providers covered by their health plan. And finally, the Rural Outdoor Investment Act, promoting economic growth in rural communities by investing in outdoor recreation infrastructure. I know that Antonio is going to cover CDS, and Kathy's probably going to talk about office hours, but I just want to mention that we too come into your community to meet face-to-face with constituents who are experiencing issues with federal programs such as the IRS, Social Security, etc. But please know that you can reach out to our office at any time if you're experiencing issues, and maybe it's not you, maybe it's a neighbor or family member, and we're happy to do what we can to assist you in getting all the benefits that you deserve. So, thank you for your time.
Do you have any questions for Renee? Just to mention, it's really, really important to know that they're really working really hard on our behalf. This $2.some million that's coming, it's not the only one. We've had other funding that's come through to the city for some of this IIJA money that we received last year as well. And we're working on that, some of those projects as we speak. So at this point, let's go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Antonio Huerta, who represents Mr. Hickenlooper's, Senator Hickenlooper's office.
All right, I hope you can hear me just fine. But thank you. I just want to echo what Renee said. Thank you for always including us. Thank you for having us. I see some of our great friends and partners here, Dr. Upper, Sarah, Dana. So great to see all of you here. Thank you, Mayor Rico, for having us. So as we're navigating this next federal budget cycle, there's a lot of just craziness in DC and in the world, and we're all just trying to navigate it. So for right now, I think we're just going to kind of bring it back to like the basics of Senator Hickenlooper. As you know, just kind of leadership is looking at a potential continued resolution into the next year, and Kathy can potentially talk more about what's going on in the House, but that's what we're seeing right now. And then in terms of committees for Senator Hickenlooper, he's on 4 very large committees. One is the Commerce Committee, which is deals with transportation, which we'll eventually be talking about Front Range Rail, commerce, interstate commerce, which gas pipelines, which when we're having conversations about Pinyon Canyon, we're sort of in that purview, and then the Federal Aviation Administration reauthorization. So within commerce, it's a committee that's super huge, but trying to navigate it that way. The next is energy and natural resources. So between our office and Senator Bennett's office, Senator Bennett's on agriculture, we're on energy and natural resources. So between our offices, we have Colorado pretty set between our forests and agriculture and us with water and electricity. The other two, well, the most recent one that we had a lot of activity within Colorado is within the Small Business Committee. The Small Business Committee hosted a field hearing in Colorado Springs on cybersecurity for small businesses. A lot of times small businesses don't have the capacity to actually have their own IT person, let alone a cybersecurity expert. So we hosted a field hearing at the National Cybersecurity Center when, as governor, Senator Hickenlooper was a co-founder of. And then the last one is health, which is the health, education, labor, and pension. Within this committee, what we mainly focus on, or at least we focus on everything within it, but the 2 big ones are hospitals, so healthcare, and higher ed institutions. So we work with Dr. Upper a lot, and then also a lot of our community health centers and rural healthcare facilities. So big four committees. So as we're navigating that here in Trinidad, if there is anything specific within that topic, happy to sit at the table and have that conversation. 3, I kind of wanted to talk about what we do for constituents. So I'm going to leave these cards up here in my own card. But Constituent Services is a team of about 8 within Senator Hickenlooper's office. They serve the state, and they focus within small business, immigration, veterans, and military, IRS, and passports. Our bread and butter has been passports over the last year, specifically because post-COVID, people weren't looking at the expiration dates, right? So a lot of times, there's a lot of people that are like, I am leaving out of the country in 2 days. Can you help us out? The fastest we've ever been able to do is about 16 hours to get you a passport. So if you have issues within that realm, happy to support. These are here, emails are here, so make sure to take this. And even recently with the war out Israel and Gaza and Palestine and everything that's going on up there, there was actually someone in Colorado that was kind of stuck out there, and our constituent services team, Senator Hickenlooper, were able to get them back to Colorado. So that is something, just from passports to getting folks back to the U.S., services that we can offer. Number 4, so Renee touched on it with the congressionally directed spending. So CDS is formerly known as earmarks. It was gone for about 12 years, and then with both chambers with Democratic leadership, brought back this very public form of earmarks, where it is set in to where everything must be public, from the application to the awards to pretty much the progress of it all. The last 2 that have actually been awarded that Senator Bennett and Senator Hickenlooper's office has worked on was the county airport for about $450,000 and the drinking water infrastructure for about $1.1 million. Though that was pretty huge to get that type of money out in rural communities, and we're hoping to continue this over the next few years. So that leads into what else we offer. Outside of casework, we have grant support and letter support. So our second iteration of a grant newsletter is out right now. We have somebody full-time that's looking through every agency to find what grant dollars are out in the world. I know Tara, very familiar with the COVID relief dollars, and IIJA, IRA, CHIPS Act, all of these big funds, and you're just hearing billions of dollars, and they're going to the states. How do we apply for that? We have somebody that's actually looking at that and actually compiling this grants newsletter. So if you want to get on that list of just being aware, I have my card here as well. Renee and I can connect you with that. And then just letters of support. So sometimes when you see state dollars, so if DOLA has money, although it may have come from the federal government, the senators don't necessarily choose winners and losers within the state. If it's a state grant, we kind of leave that towards a state application process. If, on the other end, if, like, say the Department of Energy has a grant out and it's a federal grant, the senators can jump in and sometimes do a joint letter of support, because we'd rather have federal dollars flowing into Colorado than any other state. So we'll make sure to get on either the grants list or the letter of support list. And that is kind of what I have in the general sense. Renee and I can take questions here shortly, but I do want to just really give a big thank you to Mayor Rico. He has been a huge part in a lot of just conversations with the federal level, state level, local level. He has kept us in the loop, as well as like a lot of the elected officials. It's been great to actually have this two-way communication to really make sure the senators are well aware. But Mayor Rico, I know you're outgoing, but just want to give you a quick round of applause for everything that you've done for us. And Mayor Rico, we're looking forward to working with you, and I already have your cell number, so. All right, if we have any questions, I think we're ahead of schedule, so, well, we're ahead of schedule until the elected speak, I think, so. If no questions, happy to chat after. You know, good question. So last week, actually, I was at CSU Spur. If you haven't been to CSU Spur, it's a great community location. It's Hydro Vita and what's the name? Earth, whatever the Earth version is. Terra, yes, Terra. But Secretary Vilsack actually came in, and those were some of his priorities. But he's like, can you guys pass a bill? And if you can't pass a bill, can you at least get the farm bill done? So right now, I think a lot of people are just in this general, like, what is going on, especially when a lot of the conversations are in the Four Corners. So we're pushing for it. and
Actually, as I understand it, it's been extended by a year.
So Renee is on the Ag Committee. So
is that the 2008 version?
Right.
all right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. You mentioned about the $1.1 million, and I think that the city of Trinidad did get that $1.1 million for some of our infrastructure, and it's actually being worked on right now. And just to let you know, is something that I receive, I bet you once a week, a list of all kinds of bills or money that may be available coming through the federal program. I look at them, and what I'll do is I will pass it on to Mr. Ruger. He will distribute that to any of his department heads to see if there's anything that they want to apply money for. So that's something that Karen, you'll be seeing probably once a week at least, this list of items that, and just to pass on. So with that, let's go ahead and pass it over to Ms. Kathy Garcia, the representative of Lower Goldberg's office.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the invitation to be here. Really appreciate it. I've been in Trinidad's Los Animas County for 4 different jobs that I've had over the years, starting with being out for blood when I worked for Bonfils Blood Center. But anyway, I'm Kathy Garcia. I'm the Southern Colorado Regional Director for the Congresswoman. And thanks to Antonio and Renee, they covered what the office does in the way of casework and attending meetings, and we really appreciate your inviting us to Los Animas County and Trinidad for various meetings, because we can keep you up to date and you can keep us up to date as to what's going on. I want to just briefly go over a few pieces of legislation the Congresswoman has been involved in the past couple of weeks. One of them is the Western Water Shortage Amendments that were passed. These amendments will redirect $5 million to help the drought in western United States, and money will be going to the Colorado River Dam Fund as well, so that's good. Her bill, along with Congressman Tom Tiffany's bill to delist the gray wolf, passed the House. You know, we could no longer put up with what the farmers and the ranchers are going through with the wolves eating their livestock. We've got to stop that. So hopefully we can get that passed through the Senate. Hello? The other bill that passed the House as part of the Interior Appropriations Package was the Restoring American Energy Dominance Act. We cannot depend on foreign countries for our energy. We need to have all of the energy, a whole mix of the energy. 26 of the Congresswoman's priorities has passed the House with bipartisan support, some of it is amendments, some of it legislation, et cetera, so she's been really busy doing that. And one of the things I want to bring up right now is the Purgatory River Conservancy District situation. As you know, the dam out there, the Trinidad Dam Lake, was established due to the flooding here in Trinidad. The dam was built by the Corps of Engineers. The dam is being paid for by the district, the Conservancy District. Every year, the Corps of Engineers increases the maintenance and control of that dam. If it continues that way another 5 years, the Purgatory River Conservancy District is going to go bankrupt. So we have legislation that's being tweaked right now. It's now going to the committee so that it can be introduced into the House, and we are pushing to have that bill passed because the district really needs our help to protect it so that it can continue paying on the loan for the dam, but put a cap on the maintenance of that dam. So that's something that we're working on right now. It should be introduced within the next couple of weeks, but we'll keep you posted on that. In regard to funding the government, the House has been really busy in passing various appropriation bills so that it can hurry up and pass those bills. The rest of the departments are being carried by the CR, continuing resolution. That was passed, I believe, yesterday morning. I can't remember exactly when, because everything goes so fast. It's now going to the Senate to pass so that we can have a continuing resolution and not have a government shutdown. So that's the status of funding the government. And if you have any questions, I will be here at the end of this. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I think that was built in 1977. How much more do we owe on it?
I don't know exactly how much we owe on it, but they had a 75-year loan, and they wanted to increase the loan to 99 years, but decided, no, let's not do that. Let's continue paying the loan as we can and see if we can drop the maintenance and whatever it is that goes with it to the Corps of Engineers. So we want to cap that maintenance cost.
No, thanks so much for that. And so does the city of Trinidad, do they have to pay towards that?
The city of Trinidad does provide some funding. Mayor Rico? Yes, it does provide some funding toward that because it helps them as well, the dam from flooding Trinidad. And I don't know, yes.
And also all of the ditch companies, so agricultural ditch companies also provide a certain portion based upon your number of acreage footage that is stored within the dam.
Right, so the dam was built for to prevent flooding of Trinidad, but later on was the irrigation portion was added, and that's when the farmers and ranchers came in to provide funding as well. Any other questions? Thank you. Catch me at the end. I'll be here if you have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, Renee, and Antonio for the federal perspective. It's very, very important that we hear from you each year. So this time, I'd like to bring Senator Pelton. Thank you.
Thank you, Rico. Boy, that thing is touchy. I've been your senator for almost a year now, and it's been an honor and a privilege to serve Los Animas County and Trinidad. I'm from Shine Wells. I still live on the same section I was born and raised on, so rural and frontier is all I know. And with that, that's the main bills I run have an agriculture or a rural component to them because in Denver, if you're not at the table, your citizens are on the menu. So you have to be there for every dollar you can to get back out to your rural communities. I do a lot of work in the behavioral health realm, especially for rural Colorado. I was a county commissioner for 4 years, so I bring that local government perspective to the legislature, which is sorely lacking up there. You know, I don't know how Mayor Rico had the crystal ball out to set this up 2 days before we go into special session, but the timing is impeccable. And the solutions that are coming out up there, most of them are being devised and written by members that don't have a clue about property tax. It's not their role to be involved, but yet they're going to try to mandate down what they can. Some of the legislation, like I said, I've run a lot of mental health bills. Representative Winter, I gave you a demotion already. Representative Winter and I were co-primes on a couple bills last year that had to do with agriculture. One of them was a vet loan repayment bill, an energy bill, all the above energy bill, which Representative Winter brought to the table. A few of the bills I'm working on this year, road and bridge districts in the county departments have a terrible time getting and retaining CDL drivers because there's such a demand on them. What I would like to do, and I may not have to run a bill, I've already started discussions internally with CDOT and Department of Safety around farmers don't have to have, or their employees don't have to have a CDL if they're within 150 air miles of home. And I'm wanting to do the same model for CDL drivers in the county departments because, you know, they know these roads they're on. And so I would like to see that instituted for the counties because they have such a workforce shortage. Another problem we have out here in rural Colorado is our K through 12 administrators and teachers, and there was a bill run a couple years ago. If a retired teacher wanted to go back and go to work and help those school districts, it wouldn't be a hit on their para accounts. Well, I want to do that for administrators because we have the same problem with them. Another problem we have along the border counties, which Los Animas County is one, is there may be a big farm or ranch in another state, but their ranch or their farm operation here in Colorado has vehicles that will never leave the state, but yet they have to register them in the state that they live in. So that's income that is being missed by these rural counties that could really go to help because those vehicles will be housed and stay here their whole lives. So that's just a few of the things that I'm kind of working on. I haven't turned in any bill titles yet. The Rural Hospital Association has reached out, and I'll probably be carrying a bill for them. You know, with Proposition HH failing and with some of the talk that will be going on around this property tax issue, some of our small rural hospitals are really going to be in jeopardy. So I'll be on the watch to make sure that them and our small rural schools and our special districts aren't left out and, you know, could be to their demise. So again, it's I always like to say whenever I make a presentation, rural Colorado is worth fighting for. The Front Range has done all the change and we haven't. This is where the salt of the earth people are at, and so it's worth fighting for you guys. And Southeast Colorado, I've gotten to know a lot of people over the last year and a half, and you guys are great people. And I just truly am honored by the support you've given me, and it's a privilege to serve you. So, any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Hi. 2 nights ago, a local cannabis shop closed its doors unexpectedly, and some people lost their jobs. According to the bank's jobs report, Colorado is number 2 in cannabis jobs loss, with a loss of about 10,000 jobs over the past year. That's 28%. If any other industry had lost a quarter of their jobs in 1 year, there would be significant supports put in place. As a state lawmaker, what will you do to protect cannabis jobs?
Well, I'm sure there will be some legislation brought this coming session. I'm very much a small government, private business type of person. Let the market dictate. This is largely being borne by the other states passing legalization, and it's taking the demand away from Colorado. I would prefer seeing some kind of a job training to convert them over to another job instead of just propping them up. We've had a lot of government prop-ups, you know, through the COVID crisis and stuff, and it's really harmed our workforce. You know,
there's a lot of people don't want to go to work anymore. And so we need to, there's going to have to be some balance of some kind, help these people through their, their unemployment time, but yet maybe retrain them to do another trade. Because we need people in all of our trades, our electricians, plumbers, welders, you name it, truck drivers. So that would be a solution I would look towards. Any other questions?
Senator, on your CEL bill, rural counties would really appreciate that a lot. However, Los Animas County is the largest county in the state of Colorado and the fifth in the nation. Maybe a possible exemption for a larger county or a larger area might be included in your language in that bill to assist larger rural counties.
Yeah, and another thing, talking with my conversation so far with the Department of Safety, there would have to be a component in there that they would be working towards getting a license. It wouldn't be like agriculture; they'd just be all out exempt. So, yeah, I think we could put some levels in there. And I'll look to you guys when I go to get the bill drafted, that you guys be a part of that. Yes, ma'am.
I understand your rural focus and from your background, those are the things that you're really concerned about. I'm wondering though too, are you concerned about public school funding? Are you pursuing any bills to improve it in Colorado?
So I don't go into that realm. I do though. So I was state representative for 4 years, 1 year as a senator. So I've been there for 5 years, and every year I've either brought the amendment to the budget process or the School Finance Act to earmark special, that's not really the word for it, that we use at the state, but special dollars, extra dollars out to rural school districts. I think it's been in the realm of $35 million a year over the last 5 years since I've been there. So that is something I still will support. I think K through 12 is very important. So yeah, I won't run any bills myself, but I always get on board and support ones that have good common sense funding solutions. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Just following up on that, about education for higher education, it was really a sort of the governor's budget includes a pretty sparse request for higher ed. And in fact, what he has proposed would only cover about half to 2/3 of the operating costs for community colleges in Colorado. So it's not so much a question for you as it is a request to help increase that allocation for higher ed, and specifically for community colleges and co-curricular processes.
And if you recall, last year he had the same proposal. He was really cutting the legs out from under higher ed, and both the House and the Senate Republican caucuses really went to bat to bolster that support. And I fully expect we'll do it again this year. Any other questions? If not, I'll let you guys ask this guy to do it.
Good evening, everybody. It's always good to be home. Thank you for having me this evening. To start off, I want to touch on some points that the commissioners talked about and kind of let you know some of the things that happened up at the Capitol last year. So when we're looking about the money that were appropriated to go to the courthouse, Representative Anthony Hartsock and myself in the long bill asked for money to try to help rural courthouses. So we worked hard for that, and it's good when we're traveling throughout the district. In this summer, I put 8,000 miles on House District 47. I talked to people over and over and over again, and they were really excited about some of these things, so I wanted to touch on that. Front range passenger rail, I've been working with the commissioners on that. One thing we need to do with the front range passenger rail, and you've talked about this, is we're seeing some legislation this year, but we have to make sure it's equitable for counties like Los Animas and Huerfano County. They can't expect our tax base to be paying to put rail in northern Colorado with us seeing no benefits. So we've talked about trying to find a way to opt out of that based on a county-wide vote and not a district vote. And I'll be fighting for you guys on that, because we can't fund transportation up north and take care of ourselves until we see some of that windfall our way. Another thing I wanted to talk about is keep Trinidad safe. Last year, we were reached out to by the Colonel, by Mayor Rico, by Mike, and we worked really hard to make sure that that was funded. Representative Taggart and myself went to bat at JVC to make sure that money was put back in this program for Trinidad, Los Animas County, and Mesa County and Grand Junction. So we got some work done there to put that money back in to try to help our community. Because last year I really tried to focus on mental health, especially for youth. We got a bill passed in House District 47. We have some of the highest amount of youth on Medicaid in the state of Colorado, and we removed a barrier. So if your kid's having problems and they talk to you about that problem, they don't have to go see their primary physician for them to tell them that they need to see a therapist. They can go straight and see the therapist. And with a lot of the things that we see going on in the world today, that you all see on the TV, I think mental health is the kicker of a lot of these things, and it starts with our kids. One thing that we found out during COVID is the suicide rate of youth in rural Colorado was a lot higher than it is in the urban area, and our kids are worth protecting. Another thing that, Senator Powell talked about is we did run a ball above energy bill. We worked really hard on that because I believe in a full portfolio of energy. Those of you that know me, I think that what's happening at the state capitol is foolish. I think that they've really hurt our energy industry, especially in this community, and you all have seen that. And unfortunately, a lot of times the legislation that gets passed in Denver really affects rural Colorado, and there is a rural-urban divide, whether people want to believe it or not. There are different ways of thinking in this state, and there's nothing wrong with that. And we need to be louder to the state capitol. Doesn't matter what political aisle that you sit on, when they do things in Denver that hurt our community, we should be one solid voice fighting to keep our jobs in rural Colorado, to keep our jobs in Los Animas County. And we shouldn't be playing the dogma game of, oh, well, Denver says, don't get me wrong, we want clean water and clean air. Well, look around, because rural Colorado are the true stewards of the land. Our water's clean, our air's clean, it's beautiful here. They should take a note from our book, but when it kills our industries, that's really tough, and we need to fight for those industries. I'm not saying we don't transition, but you don't cut off your nose to spite your face. In that energy bill, we talked about wind, solar, oil and gas. We even talked about small modular nuclear, because really, if they talk about a carbon-free goal, even the World Health Organization has come out and said that is impossible without small modular nuclear energy. And what people don't realize, it's not the nuclear, and I pounded on that for this, because it's not the nuclear of Chernobyl. Nuclear power plants now, number one, they don't take the property via eminent domain like they used to, because it's on the size of a Walmart footprint. So a small modular nuclear plant is a Walmart in a parking lot. That's what it is. It don't take the water, because they created a saline solution to cool the rods. So nuclear is in a total different place. There's actually an energy provider within House District 47 who has put in money for a grant to try to get a grant to try to look at building out a small modular nuclear reactor. I think that's really important. 2 or 3 of the counties in House District 47 are some of the poorest counties in the district. It'd sure be nice with the power plant and the power lines that they're building through southeastern Colorado, that if 3 of those counties could pluck one of those plants in that district and save their communities. There's communities that, we see what we see here, but when you guys get farther out east, you would really see some sad things. And we have to really work hard on making sure that they survive as well. So those were some things that we really championed last year. Mental health, worked on a lot of things like that. I enjoyed that. Another thing, locally, I've been working with President Epper. I was chosen to be on the art board to be able to select art for the college for the new remodel, and that's been an awesome experience. We've narrowed it down, and we actually have a local artist who's going to be part of that, Doug Holdred. He was one of the finalists, so that's really exciting. And we're going to try to find some art and really beautify the campus. And I was able to take a tour, and you're doing a great job, and thank you, ma'am. Trinidad College is important for this community, and thank you for what you do. Another thing that was exciting this year is, I don't know if you all know, we did an energy and agriculture tour. We're going to work on something to do with economic development this year. Just so you know, I had that conversation with some people from your camp, but we're going to work on trying to get another tour set. But last year was specifically to show urban legislators on both sides of the aisle what it takes to survive in rural Colorado. Started in northeastern Colorado, traveled all the way down the state line. When it got into this part of the district, we went out and talked to the vegetable growers in Rocky Ford. We stopped and ate lunch at a ranch right on the Los Angeles-Otero County border, and then they saw our energy production. They were able to go up and see the energy production up the river, and it was kind of shocking to them when the employees from the company were drinking the groundwater that was supposedly tainted and dirty, and they were able to see what that produced water has done up there. There's reservoirs, the wildlife drink it, and that's another thing that we have to fight for, is because one size fits all regulation out of the state capitol. Our produced water here is different than up north. With the drought that we're facing and the water issues that we're facing, excuse my language, we're damn fools to be pumping good water back into the ground when we could be using it, our county commissioners could be using it to water roads for dust, mitigating fire, and making sure that we keep livestock drinking. So, I mean, that's another thing that we need to see as a community, and we need to push back on Denver no matter what political stripe you are, because it is hurting our community, and those are things that we have to fight for. So this year, what I'm really excited about, I really worked on some legislation. I traveled around the district. Like I said, I put a lot of miles on, and I spoke to a lot of people, and I plucked bills from all different types of places. One bill that we're really excited, I'm working on with Senator Pelton. We were actually on the phone with Colorado Department of Agriculture. Our farmers and ranchers see a lot of fees and taxes. We see it all the time, and it's unfortunate. And there's a lot of policy out of the Capitol and that will be coming out of the Capitol that really puts a damper on our agricultural industry. It's almost like they went after energy first, and now they're going after agriculture. And agriculture is the lifeblood of rural Colorado. No matter how you look at it, we need to protect our egg producers. Like I always say in Denver, we feed you and we heat you. And they need to understand that we feed not only them, but we feed America, and we heat Colorado. So this bill is a soil health bill, and we're going to give farmers and ranchers some tax breaks and some tax credits for doing rotational grazing, no-till and low-till farming, rotational crops, things that people are doing, and we're trying to backfill for some of the hit that they're taking, because like I said, at the end of the day, I mean, most of us like to eat steak and vegetables, and it's a beautiful thing. Also, I'm running a bill, tax relief for kids, with the other Pelton, Byron Pelton, Rod's cousin. And what it is I modeled it off of some of Florida's legislation. We talk about inflation. Colorado has the highest inflationary rate of any state in the nation right now. It is hard to raise kids. I have 2 of them. So what I did is I modeled some legislation out of Florida, and basically that will give, you will pay no state sales tax on formula, cribs, gates, anything to raise a child. Not only that, I took a little piece of New Mexico's legislation. You hand me that bottle, sir. Down in New Mexico, they have a duty-free holiday in the summer. So when the kids get ready to go back to school, there's a Saturday and Sunday where they show up to the mall. They pay no sales tax on clothing, computers, book bags. If we're really going to help families, why do you need to send your tax dollars to the state for them to play with, to turn around and send back to you, when you can just keep that money in your pocket and pay for your kids' school lunch? So that's about, we have a free school lunch in Colorado now, but you know what I'm saying. So I'm really excited to work on that bill. I think it's something that's going to help Coloradans of all stripes. Another bill that I'm working on, it's a cleanup on a motor vehicle accident bill that came out of Prowers County. There was some, it came out of a tragedy actually, and a sheriff found some language that he thinks really needs to be cleaned up when they look at how they take statistics on that. So it's more of a cleanup bill. Another bill that I'm working on, I was reached out by the Pueblo County coroner. It's the minor autopsy bill. I don't know if you've heard about the little girl named Riley that was killed in El Paso County. Her mother wakes up, she looks in the newspaper, and she found out how her daughter was murdered by reading the newspaper. All the details of what happened to her daughter. Now, I believe in freedom of press, and I believe the press needs certain details, but I think that there's a way to go about this. Actually, the bill, this bill was passed and vetoed by, at that time, Governor Hickenlooper. Right now, we're trying to get that bill repassed, and what it'll be is the way it sets right now, it'll be pretty darn hard for them to be able to get those records to put in the newspapers. Riley's law allowed for a committee, so I don't know where we're going to go with this, but what kind of ground we're going to gain. But to be able to come out and say, here's the deal, we know that you need this information, but let's go through a process before you put all of this out in the press. And no mother should wake up and find out how their child was murdered in the media. So I think we really need to do a stopgap, because we speak of mental health, that's a tough one. And then the last one, update signature verification. This came out of another county, and they just want to make sure that in the very first signature verification process when it comes to ballots, that people of all political affiliations are able to sit there and take a look at them. And this comes out of a Republican county, and I really give her credit, because she wants to make sure that the process is fair and equitable. Another thing that she was talking about is everybody talks about signature verification machines. Well, for small frontier counties and rural counties, they just can't afford that. It's not in their budget. So we're really working on that. And then I have a lot of long bill asks. I'm working for Pueblo on beds for kids. Right now I just spoke with the commissioners, and they're having to make decisions like, we had a kid that tried to stab somebody last night, but today we had a kid that tried to shoot somebody, so we have to let the kid that tried to stab somebody go because trying to shoot somebody's worse. That's a tough pill to swallow, especially with the crime that we're seeing across the state of Colorado. And if we're going to knock down recidivism, I mean, if you've got to knock down recidivism, that means rehabilitation. And if we want to put members back into society that are, and I'm going to say it, not be a drain, but be actual members of society, they're going to pitch in and help pull the wagon. We've got to have the ability to do that for those people. And there's going to have to be some give and take there. So I'm working on some long bill stuff. I work with the commissioners. I look forward to working with Mayor Griego when she gets into office. And my commitment from the beginning is to work for Southeastern Colorado. Like Rob, it's truly an honor to serve you all. It's always good to be home and see everybody. And I'm going to continue swinging away for rural Colorado. And I'm going to keep swinging away for Los Animas County and the other 8 counties that are within my district. Prop HH, I'm excited to see what's going to happen. I'm not optimistic, unfortunately. They're talking about taking Tabor funds to do some of this, and the voters of Colorado were very clear, and it was a very resounding no. We saw this one time before with Prop 112 and Senate Bill 181 when the citizens of Colorado gave a resounding no, and the governor and his legislators turned around and went against the will of the people. I sure hope that they listen this time. We told everybody that we needed a special session, and I'm not playing politics, this is facts. This is why we walked out. We knew that this was a bad idea, and we knew that the voters of Colorado thought this was a bad idea because we were talking to them. Now we're in this position, the governor calls an emergency session, and it'd be a darn shame if they went in there and did the same exact thing that you asked them not to do. I hope it doesn't happen, but what we've seen before and what we're hearing out of the Capitol, there's a good chance that that's going to happen. So just know that I'm going to go up. We have real solutions to try to fix this tax issue and this assessment issue, and that's what we should be doing. We shouldn't be, right now they're talking about, well, we've got to make it equitable for renters. Well, if your taxes go down, if you own a property and your taxes go up, who's going to end up eating that? Your renter, because you're going to pass that along. So there is going to be relief for renters when we lower the assessment rates and we lower the tax rates. So that is what I'm working on this year. I'm very easy to get a hold of and accessible. I try to make every meeting I can. And I appreciate you all being here this evening. I'm open to take any questions that you have, and thank you for being here. Yes, ma'am.
Well, first of all, thank you for your energy and for your representation and
Yes,
for
ma'am.
acknowledging Trinidad State College, which is important to us, and the job that Dr. Epper does. How does the mental health dollars flow into our community?
So I actually spoke with the mayor. We had a meeting, and Mr. Ruger, there's a lot of different avenues on how they're pushed here. There's a lot of different ways to get here. So asking that question is exactly how do they flow in here. I'm going to be honest with you, ma'am. I can't tell you exactly how they flow in here from the different agencies, but from what I'm hearing from rural Colorado, I just had a meeting with a bunch of the hospitals today. I did a town hall. And first of all, there isn't enough dollars flowing to rural Colorado. That's the problem. Especially when we're looking at the mental health sphere. That's why we're pushing so hard to kind of kick it off with telehealth, because it's a little different. And not to go off of the question, but what we're seeing in rural Colorado is a real stigma around rural health. I mean, farmers and ranchers, they you know how they are. They're tough people. They don't want to go. So we're seeing an issue where they can get help by telehealth. We're trying to make a difference. But there's so many different avenues on where to try to pluck those dollars. And what I've learned is what is the most effective, especially being in a super minority, is to really work the long bill on trying to get those dollars here. So I can do some research and definitely get back with you on exactly what avenues and different parts of government push those dollars into here. But my goal is just to work the long bill to try to get some more of those dollars, because President Epper had brought up how they're not able to hire a mental health professional, correct? When we had our meeting, based upon, I guess some of the mandated requirements of that professional. Was that kind of what we're talking about?
Licensure, it's just hard to find qualified licensed professionals who want to live.
Right, and the mayor had brought that up. We had talked about some mental health issues. So my commitment is to you is I'm going to work through the long bill to label those funding streams that you're talking about and push more money into rural Colorado. She was next.
I guess I have the same question for you as well. However, I'm not sure if you guys realize exactly how many of your constituents here in Trinidad are actually employed by the cannabis industry. It is a significant amount. So I guess if your solution is that they should do something else, I guess my question then becomes, what kind of programs will you bring to Trinidad to retrain these people from a retail space to welding and, because not everybody can afford that kind of program.
Well, to be honest with you, I think the programs are here. Trinidad State College offers the majority of those programs. And, ma'am, that's kind of the question we asked the governor when they killed oil and gas in this area. They're, we'll retrain your employees and we'll have them making windmills and whatever. Those people moved to Texas, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Dakota. I can offer to you that we will try to help to get retraining, but
I don't want you to try to help retrain. I want you to try to help save jobs that exist already. Because I mean, there are restaurants in every state, there are hotels in every state, and I don't say when the restaurants take a hit or the hotels take a hit, you don't tell those people, hey, tough, you're just gonna have to be retrained. There's things that go into efforts to help these businesses, these different industries. Cannabis is a valid industry. It's a huge industry. It's done a lot for Colorado and a lot for Trinidad.
And I don't disagree with you at all, ma'am. I know it has done a lot. I mean, you know, all of us knew that other states were going to legalize. We knew that was coming down the path. But I'm along with Senator Pelton. I mean, I think that we've used tons of dollars federal and statewide to prop a lot of things up, and it's created us some problems down the road. Obviously, in the workforce, people do not want to go back to work. If you can stay at home and make more money than you're making when you're on the clock, it has hurt the workforce. And those people that you're talking about that were in the industry of hotels and restaurants, actually, there was the largest, so the number two, 1 and 2 growth of Colorado in jobs this last year, number 2 was getting people back into the industry, into the hospitality industry. But those were just jobs that were lost during COVID. They were just jobs that were backfilled and put back. The number 1 happened to be government, which, anyway, I have a different opinion on that. But, I mean, there is going to have to be some retraining, because I think the end game is the industry. You hear from the national, and they can probably talk to you more, it's kicked around here and there about reclassifying the drug, and then when that happens and Marlboro and Pfizer takes over, all you're going to have is grow industry anywhere. I really think that it's one of those things no different than we've seen with the coal mine, and no different than we've seen with oil and gas. Those people in these communities weren't necessarily propped up. Essentially, they got their benefits, and then they either had to retrain, or no different with oil and gas, than they had to move out of state. So I don't think there's any magic button we can hit to fix this, other than trying to put people in the direction of getting retrained. And like, I understand not everybody's meant to be a welder, not everybody's meant to be an electrician.
That stuff's not free.
Well, no, I understand that, ma'am, but there's a lot of federal grants and programs to put people through college. But like I said, my commitment to you is to kind of look at the problem and see what kind of solutions we have to work with. Well, you're very welcome, ma'am. Okay.
I mean, I think there's also the issue that our city's losing tax money, and the city, you know, who does marijuana loses tax money. So is there anything that you guys could possibly do as we lose these dispensaries to you know, make sure we don't just kind of
Well, and I agree with you, and I think that we are doing that. I think this energy bill and the talk of geothermal, I mean, we're trying to bring industry into these communities, but we can't pick and choose. We can't be mad that they're getting rid of marijuana and be okay with they got rid of oil and gas. It don't work that way, because if so, then it's kind of hypocritical, in my opinion. So, I mean, if we're gonna, that's what I said, if we're going to fight for industry and to save our communities, we have to fight for industry. It can't be like, well, I have this political ideology, so I'm going to fight to save this business, but, you know, I don't like oil and gas. We can't fight for that. If we're going to make our community whole and fight, we've got to fight and make our community whole. And that's why, I mean, that's what I'm saying about getting on the same page. If you want to save industry, you've got to get together and be a resounding full voice to fight for industry. And then we've got to push to bring industry into our community. And that's, I think that your mayor and other city council people are working hard to do that. And I think that your commissioners and I think your senator and your house rep are working on those things. But Rome wasn't built in a day either. And we've taken a big hit from the state government in rural Colorado, and we're reeling, and it's taken us some time. Yes, ma'am.
Many of our mental health providers here in rural Colorado only are very limited on what insurance providers they receive, they support. And so going forward, would there be an opportunity to provide maybe a tax credit or some type of initiative support to bring those other mental health providers that support all insurances? So we're not traveling 2 hours, 3 hours to provide a mental health service.
So we talked about that issue today in reimbursement. That's another issue that we're seeing in rural hospitals. We could chat and we could talk about that more, because basically it's like anything. I'm going to need the information. I'm going to have to go and talk and litmus test. Because one thing I learned about the state capitol is a lot of it is there's a lot of stakeholder work in something like this. So I mean, definitely same thing. If you'd like to sit down, we could take a look at it, let me know more of what you're looking at. And then this year when I'm up with session, we could chat with them and see what they'd be willing to look at. Does that work? Awesome. Any other questions? Ben?
Just one follow-up. On the autopsy bill, do you have more specifics on like what might be restricted? Obviously, there's already some restrictions, but it is pretty easy to get the autopsy.
Yeah, right now we're drafting it, Ben. It's in the middle of drafting. We're working with the Coroners Association. We're working with actually Riley's mom. We're working with a bunch of different stakeholders, and last time, from what I understood, the reason that the bill was vetoed was pressure from the press, basically because he was running for president at the time, and there was a lot of pressure saying, so I know we're going to get pressure from the Press Association. I'm not trying to here to silence the media.
Yeah, no, we're a stakeholder too, so
Yeah.
we can guarantee that someone maybe from CPA or a representative like that will be at the table with you?
Yeah, and I definitely think that's going to happen. The lobbyists that we're working with from the Corners Association, they're willing to work on that, and we're willing to find some middle ground on this. We just have to find some, and basically what Riley's Law is a commission, so if you want the information, you sit in front of a group of people, and they sit and say, okay, to write your story, what exactly do you need? Do you need to put in there that she was raped 32 times and that her throat was slit, or is there another way to do this? I think that's what they're really trying to do, is to protect the family. So we're actually hoping that the Press Association will come to the table and take a step back and say, okay, there's a way we can put this out there, but there's a way with doing it without that family having to relive that grief over and over and over again.
Thank you, Ty.
Yes, sir. Sorry, they were asking me questions.
Renee Martinez, on your clarification that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, on the farm bill extension, it's to the 2018 farm bill.
Next person on the list, and I think we really want to listen to him, is our lobbyist, Mike Beasley, and he's going to give us information as to what he sees at the state level, what's been happening, what may happen at the next legislative session. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. Good evening, everybody. I have the tough job of going last after all of these speakers, but I have the honor of representing the city as their lobbyist in the legislature, and I am really fortunate to get to work on the issues that they've identified, working with our county commissioners, with groups like the Municipal League, the Press Association that you mentioned just a minute ago, for example, and across the board. And I'm going to talk about 3 or 4 topics just to add a little bit more context to what you've heard here today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions because I'm positive I'm going to leave out a bunch of stuff. So let's talk a little bit about what the voters just did in turning down HH. That meant the governor called for a special session that is going to start on this Friday. And we've really seen, I'll speak for me, a large, diverse conversation about what should we do to provide tax relief. The governor narrowed that relief to this fiscal year that we're in right now. So if I were to forecast for you what that's going to look like in the next few days, I think it's going to be very similar to the temporary relief that you get right now. So I think in a phone call that I just had a few minutes ago, I think likely what the legislature will likely pass is a bill that will lower your residential assessment rate by maybe 0.5%. And then on the actual assessed value they received, they will discount some, I think it's going to be somewhere between $50,000 and $65,000 per house. There are industries like the cannabis industry, for example, that have said, you know what, legislature, we also want a property tax break, and I don't actually see that happening for the business side. Regardless of what your business is, I think it's going to be strictly applied to residential. There will be a debate then about should we take that out of the general fund or Tabor reserves outside of or above your Tabor refund. And that's really what I'm seeing the legislature wrestle with. Republicans have been pretty clear where they are, and the Democrats are not very clear. They're kind of fighting behind the scenes about that, or having spirited discussions about how they want to do that. I think we'll know a lot more about that come this Saturday or Sunday. I think it's important to relate that then to the state budget, right? And what 2024 looks like. And these are the big things that I'll be talking about with the city. We actually have in this state budget, and I've been around this budget now for about 30 years, a record amount of money in our state budget, both in terms of local taxes and federal dollars. And so with that and a Tabor surplus, and we haven't had that very often since Tabor passed, right? So we're gonna talk about that. But what I see in 2024 already on the ballot is certified for the ballot is something that I think is going to be much more impactful to local governments, school districts, the state budget and things like higher ed, and that is a limitation on the amount of property tax revenue that can come into local governments capped at 4%. And so if I were to predict, and I love my job and I'm kind of a policy nerd, what I think is the biggest debate in this next session is going to be how to do tax policy that addresses income tax, property tax reform, without getting into Tabor surplus and trying to avoid that initiative that I just described or additional initiatives to lower property tax. So the coalition or the stakeholder meetings around that kind of conversation is going to look like the bar scene from Star Wars. And they're going to have to do that while we're in session, which is always really tough. That's always like, watching people build an airplane while they're flying it, no offense to our legislators. And so this has been coming for a better part of a decade. It's really important and it's going to matter a lot. The governor, I think, in his way, as being governor, really kind of added, I'm going to call it fuel to the fire to be positive in this regard. And he submitted a budget on November 1 that kind of highlighted, I think, this debate. As an example, he gave a budget over to the Joint Budget Committee on November 1 that had about $60 million that he didn't really apply to anything. But he only gave Medicaid providers a 1% provider increase. Higher ed in Colorado, all higher ed, asked for, let's say, $190-some million in new money, so they wouldn't have to raise tuition as high, and the governor put about $38 million in the budget. We've heard about record severance tax and a healthy time on severance tax, but the governor swept all of those funds and for the next year and just kind of plopped them into that budget. When local governments, I think, would make the suggestion they really needed to diversify their economy for when those cyclical matters come up that you just described. And so what that means is the governor said, hey, it's good to be a legislator. And so why don't you all talk about it, and I'll let you know in May if I want to sign it. And that's what governors do. And that's completely appropriate. So that means that all of you, regardless of what profession or industry or personal interest you have, you're going to go run into your legislator, you're going to go running to the Joint Budget Committee, and you've heard our senators and representatives talk about that. The need, a lot of attention is going to be put on that Joint Budget Committee between now and March, and it really matters. So when we talk about, someone asked about school funding, we're going to finally address the budget stabilization factor. We had the votes to do that last session, but we couldn't get support from the governor and others to do that. So that means that on top of, we talk about record funding for K-12 education, but remember that's on top of record cuts, right? And so when we get rid of the BS factor, what that means now is that the state of Colorado, since Governor Ritter's time, still has a bill to pay, or monies that were obligated under the previous Finance Act of about $10 billion after we get done with the BS factor. So we're going to really want to talk about how we want to do that. I'll talk a little bit about energy and the diversification of rural economies. We know that there's going to be legislation in this next year that I think is going to have an impact on local government's land use authority related to the siting of things like transmission lines and other types of energy development. We know that there's going to be legislation requiring rural co-ops to do net metering, which means that they're trying to mandate from the legislature that rural co-ops that may not have the infrastructure or the programs to promote renewable energy, that there will be a mandate to do that. We know that there's a committee in the legislature right now that has kind of gotten a little bit off the rails related to produced water. That's a big deal in Los Animas County. It has been for years. And there are some that are trying to the water that's produced from natural gas extraction, they're trying to regulate it in a different way to make it even more difficult to do two things. One, to extract natural gas, and two, to return that water to the river or wherever it is that it's most closely related to. make sure that we've covered everything. I would say, let me conclude with the thing that kept me up in the last legislative session, and that was Senate Bill 213, and that was a bill that really tried to mandate and reorganize and the way Colorado is growing. Very similar to an initiative that we saw in the early 2000s that was pretty roundly defeated, but it came back. And it was very heavily in terms of mandates about how communities grow, what do they develop within those communities, things like density mandates, mandates for accessory dwelling units, those types of things. Those bills are going to come back, and it's not going to be in one, because when you have one bill that you put lots of stuff that people don't like, it makes it tough to pass. So that bill currently is, I see it now in 5 different bills. With not just the mandates. I described it the other day, I think at Action 22, is they're bills with a few carrots and then a big stick at the end. And what that means is they're going to give communities planning dollars to do things like what would upzoning look like in X and Y and Z community? What would an overlay rezoning look like for accessory dwelling units, that type of thing. And so that I think it's going to require DOLA, in fact, to provide that kind of support, to do inventory of different planning best practices, and require cities and counties to do it. And if they don't, somehow try and take different dollars away from them. It's early. That those bills, we won't see those until January-ish, and so I'm sure that those will change just as much as the tax bills I just described to you between now and then, but those are the kind of things that we're working on and that we're trying to be a leader with, and I'm happy to answer questions about this or anything else you've read in the paper. So. Oh, my kind of crowd. Well, Sarah.
He said, what's gonna the very first week of the session? Because last session, some of the stuff that I lost in the work with you was everything was pushed off to the end. And the timing of the introduction, is that going to be the same or is that going to be different?
So I think the question is, the way I would say it, the way I heard it is, are we going to procrastinate to the very end? And of course we are. It's how I raised my kids, and it's how the legislature works. And look, these are really tough issues. And you've heard me say, or when I speak to schools, my favorite Winston Churchill quote, you can always count on, he would say, you can always count on America to do the right thing, but only after they did everything else first. Again, no offense, guys, but the legislature is in a similar place. This is the greatest state in the country, and we're going to continue to see the struggles. The growth debate, the tax debate, the budget debate is huge. And we're having it at the same time we have records amounts of federal money that, for me, I think it would be a crime to give those dollars back to the federal government, because these can be transformative dollars, especially on the housing side. But we seem, in my words, my opinion, distracted by some of these other items in order to meet these initial needs of Colorado. So we're going to I will have big bags under my eyes the last 3 days of session for sure. So, yes,
Do you represent any other cities in the state of Colorado?
I have the city of Blackhawk, which is really kind of interesting. They have 65 registered voters, and they generate 85% of all the gaming revenue in Colorado, which is about $160 million. 65 voters. I tell the mayor it's like the Monte Carlo of Colorado, so he loves that. So, please.
Hey, Mike, when it comes to the housing regulations, I know that the appetite is to regulate land use. And in rural Colorado, and it seems like it's, from my position, it translates into the reason that land use needs to be regulated or incentivized is to remove barriers to affordable housing. I'm in rural all the time. It seems like to me it's not land use that's the barrier, it's access to capital and it's supply chain issues. It's good contractors in rural areas to come out and do housing development. So I mean, in those conversations, are you seeing anything being discussed about how you, if you really want to incentivize affordable housing, how you solve supply chain issues, how you get access to capital in rural areas, or how you get construction out into the rural areas?
That's a very good question, and here's how I would answer it. So when I first started lobbying, I lobbied for the Home Builders Association 30 years ago. And back then, the home builders would go to the legislature and they would say, you know what, we have too much owner occupied, we need more rental. So 30 years later, the economy has completely flipped over for not just the reasons you mentioned, but to others. Since then, we have created and we have extended 3 times the affordable housing tax credit, which is way overprescribed. I mean, it's so popular, and then entities like the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority and individual housing authorities provided that gap funding between state and federal funds. I sit on the board of Volunteers of America, which is the largest affordable housing producer in Colorado, more Section 8 vouchers, and they cannot keep up. And so while we're not looking at supply chain, we are looking at funding community colleges. Labor is stepping up, unions are stepping up saying we want to start training workers as well. There are cities like Aurora that actually along the light rail lines bought their own land. They acted as a developer. They put the water and sewer in and they waived their water tap fees and other developments in order to incent, and sometimes the economy is what it is, in my opinion. And so that's really what the legislature and the governor is looking at. But we need to make sure that we don't give these guys back any money.
Right.
And I've said it and I'll say it again because I used to run the Department of Local Affairs, best job I ever had, by the way. And I was also popular back then. So they liked me for me, it wasn't the money, I think you know, you guys in the Division of Housing added more employees in that division in 1 year than I had when I left. You more than doubled the amount of employees. So we, again, building that airplane while we're flying it, it's just this housing thing is so important. And our obligation is to support DOLA and the Division of Housing any way that we can. That's what we tried to do as a city and the legislature, for sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here, and thank you for coming out.
I know we have a little bit of time left, but Dr. Epper, would you have anything you would like to report?
Well, yes, the most exciting thing that's happened recently is we won a national championship. I was not prepared. Thank you. Yeah, so men's cross country won the national championship over the weekend. JCAA, we were up against some really, really great teams throughout the nation. The most competitive probably was Salt Lake City Community College, which has 60,000 students, by the way. We have 2,300. So little Trinidad State managed to pull it off. We're really proud of them. This is our team from Alamosa. So our runners come from Alamosa. There must be something in the water or the air in Alamosa because they produce some great runners. The women's team came in 4th, which also is outstanding. And our best runner on that team, who was the runner-up yesterday in half marathon, is a local girl from Alamosa. So really incredible results there. Also, Trinidad State was recently named one of the top 150 community colleges in the nation by the Aspen Institute, which means we're eligible to apply for the Aspen Prize. It's a very prestigious honor, even to be named in the top 150. We're the only community college in Colorado that was recognized for this. It's not the first time. It's based on our performance on a number of indicators, purely on the data for our graduation rates, our retention rates,
equity gaps, our small gaps in equity for the performance of our all ethnicities and races of students. There's very little gap between the achievement of those students, so we're really proud of that. I've shared this with all of our state officials today. This is our legislative priorities for the community college system, put together by our legislative team. And the most important thing that we're hoping for this year, as I mentioned, is the appropriation to increase, as you did last year, higher than what the governor has recommended. This is really critical to our funding. But also we have a capital request that's really important for the college. It is to renovate our Valley campus. As you know, we have done a lot of work with renovations on our Trinidad campus. We're renovating our library, and we're renovating one of our residence halls currently, and there's been quite a bit of state money that's been appropriated to renovate the Berg building, our HVAC, our boiler system, and we had some control maintenance dollars for new windows. So we're thrilled with the funding we received for our Trinidad campus. Our Valley campus is badly in need of renovation as well. So that's on the list of priorities. We hope we'll find some funding for that. And again, just supporting that base operating increase is what we're really hoping for this year. So that's what I have. Thank you very much.
Yes.
May I ask you a question? What's going on about the emerging campus?
Oh, yes, thank you for bringing that up, Dana. We do have a proposal into OEDIT through the Colorado Opportunity Now grant program. I've talked about this before. We applied last year or earlier this year. We did not receive funding, but we have applied again for the second round. There's no short list. We made the short list last time, but this time there's one competitive process.
And it's called prayer.
We're asking for $4.8 million this time. This is for Emergent Campus in Trinidad, replicating a business incubator model. It's been very successful in Fremont County. And we already have 2 companies who are committed to open their business in Trinidad. Out of Emergent Campus in Florence, and that is regardless of whether we get this funding or not. So Emergent Campus is coming to Trinidad. We're partnering with the school district and the Park Street building. We've already got an MOU in place to house the businesses that will be operating in this business incubator. And this is the kind of thing that we need in Trinidad to bring more jobs, to increase our tax base and provide opportunities for our kids to have a reason to stay in Trinidad and not necessarily leave. They can go to school here, they can go to college here, and they can work here and have a successful income. So, yes, we're hopeful that happens.
Great.
Thank you.
Great.
One more.
Will you give us a quick update on Copper?
Oh, yes. That is the funding for the construction trades program out of the Attorney General's office. We now have 7 houses that we're working on, 5 in Trinidad, 2 in the San Luis Valley. The 5 in Trinidad have been supported through the Housing Incentive Program through the City of Trinidad. So we've received that $25,000 assistance from the city for each of the 5 houses here. One of them is under contract, about to close, the first one at 926 Stonewall. 920 Stonewall is very close to completion, so that will be going on the market very soon. And then we have 3 other houses we're working on next. Department of Corrections is working with us now, so we're hoping in January, I just got word today, that we'll be having incarcerated students working on the 3rd house starting in January. So that's going to be great for the program, getting these houses back into service, back on the tax rolls, and it's we've signed the deed restrictions, so it's affordable housing. It's training students to work in construction trades, and so it's a win-win all around. That's what's going on with Copper. Any other questions? Great. Men's basketball is starting up. I hope you'll come out and see a game. We're expecting great things from them again this year.
Well, that concludes all of our speakers tonight. I just want to say thank you for being here. I think it's really important. Back in 2018, I believe is when we started this. I introduced this to say it was important to bring our legislators in, our elected officials, to let you citizens know, what is going on in each one of their areas. And I'm glad to see the turnout tonight. It's very important for you to understand what's happening, and you're able to meet face-to-face to our local, state, federal officials. And I want to say thank you for attending tonight, and especially our speakers here, and all the work that you guys try to do for us, and keep our money rolling into Trinidad and Los Angeles County. So anything that we can do, I just wanted to mention one thing is, Mike, you talked about, or somebody talked about Senate Bill 213 last year, and it's come around in different ways. And last year, I was with Mike almost daily at the end, trying to ask him questions. Where's this at? I was talking to Mr. Pelton, Senator Pelton. I think I talked to Ty a little bit, but stayed on the phone with him and trying to find out, give me updates, what's happening. The city of Trinidad, we did opt in to send a letter in opposition to it, but anyway, it was something that, like I said, it's coming back around. So I think it's going to be on your shoulders to keep on track, keep track of it. So anyway, thank you, have a good night, and hopefully to see you again next year. I won't be here presenting, but hopefully somebody else will be. Thank you for attending.